Well, you mentioned before to me the ride-sharing company. We won't name names. So give us an example of what you did there, because that sounds
Yeah, I mean,
similar.
that was an interesting one. They wanted to know where, if they electrified their fleet, where they'd need to put charging points and how much charging, and so where their fleet was. And my first question was, well, don't you know where they are? 'Cause it's your fleet. That was a sort of first question. And apparently it wasn't as easy as they thought. But when we did do the analysis of where the drivers were, and that, it was nothing like what common sense and what the business thought. We thought, okay, this is the city, this is all the workers finish at 5 o'clock. Here are the main points, big stations, I'll be there. That's where the drivers will probably be. We'll put the chargers there, etc., and places like that. Well, what it found out to be was drivers are human, and they're very clever. And they'd worked out that if they hung out in Mayfair or Regent's Park, even if they missed 10 rides, one ride from Regent's Park would give them a bigger tip than 5 rides from anywhere else. So they all would hang around the place where they would get the biggest tips, rather than where most of the journeys and traffic was going from. Purely human once you'd uncovered it.
Because the splits ended up, again, without naming the company, more like 48% to the company and only 52% for the driver. So at which point, and if they're kind of downgrading some of the job values, a tip's probably worth 4 jobs.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and these people were very generous with their tips from those places. So it was, even I was shocked at the sorts of so some of them were eye-watering, but this was natural. The drivers had worked this out amongst themselves and had come up with their own rules of where to behave, which was completely different to what the business and sort of common sense would sort of say. I mean, again, the data gave it away. Another example of this, which I just find amusing, so I'll tell. In an island in the Caribbean, they wanted to carry, a census. They wanted to know where people really were, so they knew where to build hospitals and schools. And it's really important, the census, right? But for some reason in the Caribbean, they didn't like filling out the census forms, and the data was always sort of wrong. So what we did, we knew, well, everyone owns a mobile phone. So we decided that at 4 in the morning, where that phone existed, was the address of where that person was, probably, for most cases.
Yeah, statistically most likely.
Yeah, most of them, some people were. So again, that was so different to what the official census information was. So by counting people correctly, so saying, okay, that's the 4M, that's, we do that every night, and that seems to be the address of, X number of people, gave quite a different map of what the official census was saying. Again, just a different way of looking at what it says is, again, without knowing it, we leave a digital wake, and organizations, for good or for bad, if they're clever enough, can extract that digital wake and make valuable decisions on it. In this case, it was great. It improved where the government was going to, decide to build hospitals and schools, because it was far more accurate of where people actually really lived, as opposed to what they were saying.